Well, I think they like the maps. I just saw it for the first time today too. It looked good.
Well, you saw the
Yeah.
district lights.
Yeah, I was like, wow.
And we had the boundary line.
Hey,
The goal was to get down the way the district is structured, organized, very classy.
way too.
It's only cheap, right? So it's not like.
It's just the district-wide or check boxes, overlays of each of them.
Oh, yeah, we can do that. I thought you meant that in Creekville.
No.
I've seen some of that. I know. That's a little bit. No, we're gonna put up a web app. That's not a problem.
All right,
Yeah, I think that.
I would like to call to order the open session of the National School District Governing Board. Thank you for coming. We appreciate your attendance. Will you please stand with us for pledge allegiance? Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Will you please read the roll?
Ms. Lopez, present. Ms. Arevalo, present. Ms. Whittingford, Ms. present. Ms. C,
Present.
and Trustee Avalos, absent.
Madam President, I'd like to request that we have a moment of silence for Ms. Avalos' husband, Art Martinez, who just passed away.
If you would all join us for a moment. Thank you. We want to honor Trustee Avalos. I have a report out from closed session. In closed session, by unanimous vote, the board voted to approve a compromise agreement and release the student in OAH case number 2024-120503. The agreement resolves a dispute related to the student's special education supports and services and includes compensatory education, assessments, an IEP amendment, and attorney's fees in exchange for a waiver of claims between the parties. All right. Item 5 is presentations. 5A is to recognize Luis Hamilton Nieto as a National School District Shine volunteer. And we will ask Principal Zolna Santana from Olivewood School to please not. Wait a minute.
She goes to school.
Oh, okay.
I reached out to her.
All right, we will not be able to do this tonight, as he is in school. So,
Education first.
we're thankful for that. We will see what we can do to recognize, Luis Hamilton Nieto again. So thank you very much. Item 5B is to recognize Jose Luis Aguilar Arias, warehouse delivery driver, district, as the National School District Employee of the Month for April 2025. And we are asking, there you are. I was looking for you.
I'm here somewhere.
We are asking John Hanson, who is our Director of Business Support Services, to please come to the podium. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I'm going to relinquish the podium. Thank you very much for that. I'm going to relinquish the podium really quickly to Jennifer Sandoval, who's our purchasing supervisor. and is Jose's direct supervisor and works very closely with him every day. So please, Jennifer.
Good evening, Governing Board and Executive Cabinet. It is my pleasure to recognize and congratulate our NST warehouse delivery driver, Jose Luis Aguilar Arias, as our Employee of the Month. Jose was nominated with enthusiastic support, and for good reason. His unwavering punctuality and constant willingness to assist others make him an invaluable part of our team. But beyond that, it is Jose's positive spirit that truly stands out. His warm smile and uplifting attitude brighten every space he enters and helps foster a collaborative and supportive work environment. Jose consistently goes above and beyond his responsibilities, often adjusting his schedule to prioritize the needs of children at our school sites. He does this without hesitation and always with a deep sense of care and professionalism. The strong relationships he has built across our sites reflect his exceptional character and his pride in representing our department every single day. Jose, your outstanding contributions, reliability, and truthful demeanor make lasting impact, and tonight we're proud to honor and celebrate you. So congratulations, Jose, and thank you for all that you do for the NSC family.
Jose. Sure.
I want to thank everybody for the opportunity that was given to me to work in the school district. I feel so honored, and I enjoy coming here every single day. I could genuinely say I love my job, and I try to show my peers, my coworkers, the students, anybody to transmit that love that I have for working in the school district. But most importantly, like I said, I really prioritize making connections with all the schools, with all the teachers, everybody, so I'm really honored to have been recognized, as this means a lot to me. I'd like to thank my mom, who's in attendance, and my niece, Nicole, who's a student at John Otis. So with much more pride, I try to do my best work, because just like her, there's many other students here that just are really important to all of us. So thank you, everybody.
I would like to congratulate you and thank you for all the work that you do. You could just see the value and the confidence that you have, and that you're very passionate about what you do. So thank you so much, and we need a lot of you throughout the district. So thank you so much. And on behalf of the board and really the entire district, so I would like to thank you and congratulate you on this recognition. And here is a token for you to write down all of your notes. I'm sure you have a lot of responsibilities, so here's this for you. Make sure you don't do this while you're delivering, okay? But here's this for you, so a keepsake for you for forever. So thank you so much for all you do. Give you a hug. The whole team.
I want to do a doctor.
His mom may have something.
Yeah, I know. Sorry about that.
Picture of his family.
Thank you so much. I think we forget sometimes so many pieces move in order to make sure our students are taken care of. And so we are thankful for you. Item 5C, introduce and welcome the new employees. Dr. Kepner.
I have the pleasure of introducing and welcoming our new employees. We have 3 RSVPs, but I think only 2 are here. So I will start. Our first one, I'm going to call your name if you wouldn't mind coming up. Ivan Becerra, custodian, night custodian district. Mr. Becerra has been working as a substitute custodian this school year. He holds a bachelor's degree in forensic science from Centro Universitario Tijuana, Baja California. Welcome, Ivan. Our next new employee is Diana Rodriguez, Child Nutrition Services Assistant. Ms. Diana Rodriguez holds an English associate degree and an American Sign Language certificate from Southwestern College. Welcome, Diana. And those are the 2 that are here with us today. I will share after the ones that weren't able to make it. We have 3 more employees to introduce. Lizbeth Cordova, transportation student attendant. Ms. Cordova has been working as a substitute transportation assistant this school year. She has over 2 years of experience working with children as a babysitter and tutor. Welcome, Lizbeth. Our next new employee is Angel Ibarra, custodian night, district roving. This school year, Mr. Ibarra has been a custodian and groundskeeper substitute for the National School District, and he has over 19 years of experience as a delivery driver. Welcome, Angel. And our last new employee is Daniela Leon, campus student safety assistant. Ms. Leon holds a bachelor's degree in sociology from California State University. Welcome, Daniela. And welcome to all of our new employees.
Item 6 is public communications. Public communication provides the public with an opportunity to address the board regarding an item on the agenda or other topic. Anyone wishing to address the board shall submit a request for oral communications card. Cards are available near the entrance to the boardroom and are to be submitted to the recording secretary. A member of the public who wishes to address the board on any such matter is limited to 3 minutes for one matter, up to a maximum of 5 minutes for all closed and open session matters. There shall be a limit of 20 minutes for any matter unless such time limit is waived by a majority vote of the board. Members of the public may not yield any time to other speakers. No board action can be taken. Do we have no speakers at this time? All right. And we are moving to our business portion of the evening, just to clarify and let you all know. Okay. Item 7 is the agenda. Hold on a second. Item 7A is to accept the agenda. I am specifically I'm requesting that we accept with flexibility tonight due to a couple different factors. So, one is we have our 7 o'clock time that we have posted for the public hearing. And so I have my alarm set for 6:55 to make sure that we stop and honor that 7 o'clock time. So that may interrupt the flow of the agenda. The other item is that our auditor is also coming, and he has a truncated amount of time that he can work with us. And so it might be that we move twice, we would need to move items 12A, B, and C a bit in order to allow him the time that he needs to present.
As long as it doesn't interfere with our public hearing.
Without interfering with the public hearing. So that is why I am asking that the motion be with flexibility.
I'll make a motion with that. Second.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, I have a motion to accept the agenda with flexibility by trustee Bettencourt Castaneda and a second by trustee Sarmiento. Please vote. Thank you. Item 8 is to approve the consent agenda, routine items of business.
I would like to pull item E, 1, 2, and 3.
Item E,
Yes, 8E. From the consent agenda.
okay, I'm just clarifying, thank you. Trustee Bettencourt Castaneda, it sounds like we were asking for an amendment to your motion.
You want to pull for discussion?
Okay. So that would be to approve consent agenda except for items E, 1, 2, and 3. Okay. Is that amendment acceptable? Okay, all right. So we have a motion at the moment to approve with pulling items 8E, 1, 2, and 3. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, so, any other questions? Okay, then I have a motion to approve the consent agenda and routine items of business, pulling separately items 8E, 1, 2, and 3 by trustee Bettencourt Castaneda with a second by trustee Lopez. Please vote. Okay, then item 8E, 1 is to approve consent contracts. Do I have a motion to approve?
Second.
Okay, Dr. Burke.
We have 3 contracts on this item. One is a contract with the I Love a Clean San Diego for watershed pollution education. That's classroom presentations. Then there's another contract with the SDSU Research Foundation, Conmigo, that's Better Health Together program, and a contract with Northern Arizona University for student placement agreement. That's for a student teacher program.
And trustee Lopez.
My question for number 1, 3 is the student placement. Are they an intern credential or a student teaching position? Student teaching. That's all.
Yes, please.
Student teaching.
Thank you. Make sure we get that recorded. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? Okay. Then I have a motion to approve the consent contracts by trustee Bettencourt Castaneda, a second by trustee Sarmiento. Please vote.
Can I pass this unanimously?
Okay, item 8E2, authorize the sale, donation, and/or disposal of surplus property. Do I have a motion?
Second.
Dr. Burke. Yes, there comes a time where certain items owned by the district, be it old furniture or old electronics, are no longer in a usable state by the district, and we attempt to sell them or donate them or discard them. It depends on the situation for each. With electronics, it's e-waste, and it can be e-waste. And e-waste is it's a law that went into place in year 2003, and everything that we buy that qualifies for e-waste, we pay at the time of purchase $4 to $6, depending on what the item is. That $4 to $6 covers the fact that it's kind of like paying for bottles when you buy cans and buy a 12-pack of Coca-Colas or whatever. You pay the 5 to 10 cents depending on what state you're in, and that goes towards, it's a part of like a recycling program. This is very similar. When the items are no longer of use, that money is funding an e-waste program. A recycler handler collects those items. We provide them to them. They process the items. They try to, in some cases, break them apart and use them for parts and reuse as part of the recycling program. If it's not reusable, then they put them in like a tumbler and grinder and then package them in tiny, like compressed boxes to take up less space, and then they discard them in a sustainable way so that they're not leaching into the land and so forth. So when that happens, they report to the state government. This is a California program. How much they've processed. They receive money back for doing that, and then they pass along some of that money back to us, kind of like that deposit process where we get some of that money back. So e-wasting would be a very sustainable, clean way to get rid of electronics that otherwise could end up being very problematic.
Trustee Lopez.
Thank you. So my question for that item was on the e-waste list. There was a significant amount of Chromebooks and laptops. So I was just wondering those reasons and also then the fiscal impact to replace them or what that was like.
Yes, and Chromebooks and laptops, depending on what they are, I believe the iPads on this list were 8 years old or so, and Chromebooks similar, and they don't have the same shelf life that, say, a desktop computer has. These items are, in the world of electronics, somewhat disposable, particularly Chromebooks. They don't have memory. And they get to a point where they cannot be updated any longer, so they are no longer usable. And then putting them out for sale or something like that could potentially, if they're not updated, if they can't be patched and updated, could provide some exposure to our students and community. So those items, would be pre-pandemic Chromebooks, early pandemic Chromebooks, and they've just reached that point. There's also some just damage use that is inherent when you have 4,000 students approximately using devices. There is some loss expected, and I think we're well within that bounds of the normal loss rate. So that's more or less where those items are coming from.
Dr. Brady.
Yes, I just would like to thank Dr. Burke for that answer, but also I would like to add that Mr. Cossey did say that the Chromebooks that we sent to e-waste have been used for parts. So we've already taken as much from them as we can to, fix the Chromebook. So we're really trying to give these devices multiple lives. He also said that the iPads and the laptops were either damaged beyond repair or that they were at the end of their life from the manufacturer and cannot be updated. So back to what Dr. Burke said, that could potentially open the door to cybersecurity concerns as well. So we do have a refresh plan, and we can ask Mr. Cossey if he could share that with the governing board, just so you can see. Usually when our 6th graders leave, their Chromebooks go to the incoming 3rd graders, and then we have a plan for different grade levels to refresh at different times so that we don't have devices that are 8 years old in front of teachers and students, because that can also get frustrating.
Any further questions? Okay. I have a motion to authorize by Trustee Bettencourt Castaneda and a second by Trustee Sarmiento. Please vote.
It passes unanimously.
Item 8E3, to ratify and approve purchase orders, contracts, and warrants as summarized and detailed in Exhibit A. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Dr. Burke.
Yes, this list comprises virtually all the purchases by the district over the course of the month of February. So these are purchases that have been made by the district that are within limits or have been gone through the board approval process.
Trustee Lopez.
Yes, thank you. I wanted to gather more information on, I noticed there was it was for February and March, or mostly February, that there was purchases of furniture for different teams and departments. I wanted to see or know if each team has a budget or what the process was like for the allocation and where it was allocated within our budget.
Yes, and we have different departments and different school sites have their own site budget or department budget. For example, the business department budget is approximately $300,000 for the year. And that's to cover all our supplies and purchases and things we need. So each site has a budget that's somewhat similar to that in size. So it's beyond, it would be a challenge for, say, a school site to replace their office furniture for employees who have not had an office furniture update, say, in maybe 20 or 30 years in an office. So that has a certain expense that comes with it. So what we did use for office furniture purchases, both desks and chairs, is LCAP carryover money that was originally assigned to furniture. It has been covering the student furniture. If you've been into our classrooms, students all have beautiful new desks that are mobile and great for collaborating. And our teachers all have new rising lecterns and desks as well. The last group that had not had their furniture refreshed is more along the lines of our office staff, be it at the district office or in the school site office. We're not complete with that process, but we are making progress across and throughout the district to update that furniture. We also know that there's a lot of research indicating that sitting for long periods of the day is not the healthiest way to spend your time. That it's good for people to get up and move around or get up and do work at a standing desk. So we are trying to, join the times and provide rising desks when we can for any employee that is spending more than half of their day at a desk setting, and that includes our office staff, again at the sites and at the district. So we used LCAP carryover money that was aligned to that purpose to begin that process, and we're, it's an ongoing process. It's not complete. There are still employees out there who are working with static and aged furniture at this point.
Trustee Sarmiento.
Yeah, just so you know, I saw an article recently about the standing workstations and that those are becoming a hazard as well. So something worth looking into before we pour any money into it.
Yes, I'd like to hear that.
It sounds like they'd like that article.
Yes, I'd like to know more.
I saw it. I saw it.
I think what I've read, and we did research on this, and what I was reading is that it was good to have a variety, to not be doing one thing at too much time. Standing can lead to pressure on joints and pressure in the vertebrae and things like that, whereas sitting all day has its own dangers. I believe it related to blood pressure and other factors. So I think, circulation. So I think it was the variety that was sought or ideal for the work setting. And the rising desks give the employee the option to choose their own adventure. Yeah, I've seen some where they can walk and jog while they're working as well. We have not bought any of those. It's like a treadmill. Yeah, risk manager said no on no.
And I have a student today who believed he had one. That allowed him to take a nap. I'll just move on. Anyway, I have a motion. Any other questions? Okay. I have a motion to ratify and approve by Trustee Bencourt Castaneda with a second by Trustee Sarmiento. Please vote.
And passes unanimously.
Okay, item 9 is general functions. And at this moment, this is where our flexibility will come in. Item 9A is our public hearing, but it is not yet 7 o'clock, and according to law, we must wait on that item. So we are going to move to item 9B, which is to approve the National School District Governing Board meeting schedule for the 2025-2026 school year. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Dr. Brady?
So as the board knows, we approve the governing board meeting schedule twice a year. We do it for our calendar year, which you did back in December. And then we do it for the fiscal year, which will be for when we turn over July 1st. So these are just the updated dates so that we can keep our website up to date so people know when our board meetings are and can attend if they choose.
Trustee Sarmiento?
Oh, sorry.
No, I was just, I'm just checking. Any questions? All right. I have a motion to approve by trustee Benford Castaneda and a second by trustee Sarmiento. Please vote. Item 9C is to adopt resolution 24-25.24 declaring April as Public Schools Month. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Dr. Brady?
Well, as you know, we're all fans of public school, and this is a great way to honor our public schools and National School District. This is an item, a resolution that we have on each year, and this year we heard from our local Masonic Lodge that they will be reinstituting the awards that they do for our outgoing sixth graders. So that will be held on May 22nd, and we're happy to report that our very own board president, Ms. Gates, will be the speaker, the designated speaker.
Trustee Lopez?
Yes, could you explain what that ceremony looks like? Have they provided this in the past?
Sure. So they typically send out an invitation. The schools will make the recommendation of 2 students from each school. They're invited with their parents to a reception first, and they get fed a nice dinner. So there's a nice networking dinner. All of the board is invited to come and attend and celebrate our students, along with our teachers, our parents, our principals. And it's right for sixth grade teachers. Then they have a big hall, and they open the doors, and we go into the hall. The administrators join the leaders of the Masonic Lodge on the stage, and then around the 2 sides of the building, the students sit with their families and their teachers and their peers. And then there's a bit of a ceremony celebrating them and their accomplishments. There's an inspirational speaker, and then they talk a little bit about the Masonic Lodge and the things that they try to accomplish as a club. Is it a club? And then they do the award ceremony. And what's really beautiful about the ceremony is that they always honor the parents. So the parents stand up to be recognized, and they're actually, I believe they're in the program as well. They're listed, the parents. And so then the students come up, they get their certificate, we take a big group photo, and then they go up with them. So, and I know some other board members have been and can add to that.
Trustee Bencourt Castaneda?
It's also needed that you go into the secret chamber where not everybody's welcome, and so they're honored in that area, and it's very private. So, and it's a special celebration. So, it's an honor to be able to be part of the program. So, if they're selected, it's a very special celebration.
Yes. Trustee Sarmiento?
Yeah, I'd just like to say that I've attended several over the years, and it's really nice the way that they honor the families because of their contributions to their children that make them so successful in school. And it's nice to see that they're taking the time to be able to do that, because I know it's very special for the students that are involved, and I've always enjoyed attending in the past.
And they take a lot of pride in celebrating our children. So I'm happy that they're bringing this back. It's a long time coming, so I'm excited to be able to celebrate with them again. So.
Trustee Lopez?
Yes, I would just like to state that I do love our public schools, our children and our families. I don't necessarily agree with this organization, so I'll be abstaining, but I hope it's agreed.
All right. So I have a motion to adopt, sorry, any other questions? Okay, I have a motion to adopt resolution 24-25.24 by trustee Sarmiento, a second by trustee Bettencourt Castaneda. Please vote.
Yeah, that's 3 yes, 1 absent.
Item 9D, to approve out-of-state travel for board member Barbara Avalos to attend the NALEO 42nd Annual Conference. Do I have a motion?
I'd like to pull this item for a future board meeting while Ms. Samuels is here to be able to have a discussion.
Can we still vote on it?
I just want to be able to have a dialogue with her.
I would need a second on that, I believe.
I just like to pull this item to have discussions if we are talking about budget and so on, and then also talking about travel and in the future. Just have a future discussion.
Okay.
Because this is a lot of money we're talking about budget cuts and so on. I'd like to have this discussion. And the intentionality and in terms of travel.
Again, let me check.
We have time. It's not until July.
Okay, I have a motion to pull. Do I have a second? And I'm going to ask this question. Do you have, if the questions are asked regarding budget now, do you have information that would help us with this discussion?
I know that's something that was brought up by trustee Lopez in regards to travel and conference at our last budget in regards to the cost. And then here we have a large amount for one individual, and we had a community member question our conference on amount. I'd like to have the discussion when we're all here to be able to have the opportunity for everyone to be able to speak on it. And unfortunately, she's not here today, so I'd like to have an opportunity for her to be able to speak on it. So if we are concerned about our budget and then trouble and cost, and it is a large amount, I would like to have that discussion.
So I think that would be pretty for us to be able to have that conversation. Trustee Lopez.
Motion to approve item 9D.
Okay.
It's unfortunate that we're not taking into consideration something that
President Yates, does the motion open up the session for this item?
We did not have a second on the first motion, so the motion stalled. So we now have a motion and a second to approve. So if we have a motion and a second to approve, we can move forward with discussion on this item. Okay, and it looks like it's me. So we have the upcoming NALEO conference. And trustee Avalos has requested to go. Each trustee does have an allotted amount for the year, and we are allowed a certain portion of carryover. We do keep, Ms. Cowart and the business department does keep track of all that for us, and so we are aware of what our budget amounts are. I do know that this conference falls in next year. So even if trustee Avalos has a limit on or if she has hit her limit on this year's amount, or that she that we have, $2,400 for travel, up to a total of $4,400 because we're allowed carryover, that she will have enough money, because this is actually in the next fiscal year, to attend.
But are we speaking about how much of carryover we have, or are we speaking about how we're trying to be conservative in terms of budget? So that's what I'm talking about. Because that was what we were speaking of, how can we be more prudent in terms of cost savings? So if I was wanting to attend Coast to Coast to advocate for our district and so on and so forth, and I chose not to attend to be to be more prudent for our finances. And I did take a step back because I did not want to make that expenditure towards our district. And I thought that that was the commitment that we were going to be attending, what commitment we were going to do to save money for our district. Had I not, I'm going to do that either way. But if we're not going to make that commitment, then we need to reevaluate why we're here. So that was why I asked to pull the item so that way we can hear what her commitment is to the district. But if that's not what the agreement we have here, then you guys decide what you guys want.
Trustee Sarmiento.
Thank you. Yes, it's an individual commitment that we need to make as board members. I personally limit myself to one conference a year, and that's the CSBA conference. And whatever money that's left over in my budget will be turned over then back to the general fund, and that's always been important to me. I've done that for many years. As far as Ms. Avalos goes, she has the right to go on this training. In fact, we do need to attend trainings to learn more about our position and what we're doing. And I was glad to see that only one person had requested to attend this conference, because if all 5 of us attended, yeah, that would be a huge amount of money, and do we really need to spend that much money? But since there's only one board member who's interested in attending, I have no problem with supporting that, because, you know, if that's important to her, and if that means that she's gonna have to limit whatever conferences come up in the future, then that's her decision to make, and rightfully so.
Do I have any other input? All right, I have a motion to approve by trustee Lopez and a second by trustee Sarmiento. Please vote.
Motion passes 3-0.
Item 9E, public information item on individual trustees' social media use. At the request of community member Mr. Ed Nieto, the board is providing clarification regarding what trustees can and cannot do on social media when discussing district business in an open forum. This information is based on the Brown Act and open meeting laws, as well as legal guidance provided during a board workshop with legal counsel on February 4th, 2025. Under current law, individual board members may engage in conversations on social media to answer questions, provide information to the public, and solicit feedback. However, a majority of the board may not engage in discussions among themselves regarding district business on any platform, as this would constitute an unlawful meeting under the Brown Act. Notably, discussions include the use of digital reaction icons such as likes or emojis in response to comments from fellow board members. Additionally, if a trustee maintains a public-facing social media page discussing district matters, it must be free and accessible to the public, and users cannot be blocked unless the social media platform itself enforces the block due to a rule violation. Recent legal cases, including O'Connor-Ratcliffe versus Garnier and Lincoln versus Freed, have further clarified that board members are limited in their ability to moderate or restrict comments only when acting in their official capacity. To minimize legal risk, board members are advised to exercise caution when engaging the public in discussions on their personal social media regarding district business, and clearly state that their social media presence is personal and not an official district forum. The board remains committed to transparency and adherence to legal guidelines while engaging with the public. Any additional input? All right. Item 10, educational services. We do not have anything from them. Item 11, human resources. We do not have anything from them. We are at 6:47. Again, I remind you, we're attending to time for the purpose of our public hearing, which must start at 7 o'clock. Okay. We are going to, I have asked for flexibility, including items 12A, B, and C, for our auditor to be here due to constraints on his time. So at this moment, I'm going to item 12D, approve CT 4278 with Red Hawk Services for bid number 24-25-06B, fencing and gates at various sites. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second. Okay, Dr. Burke.
Yes, this item is for several things. It's a bid that would cover privacy tape at certain school sites that where we need to create some privacy for students because it's facing immediately next to an apartment complex or a home or a main road that has a lot of activity on it, that we're trying to create a barrier, a visual barrier between the school, the staff, the students, and the outside world. Additionally, there is some fence raising that needs to happen. We have adjusted our fences to the 8-foot height for safety reasons, but in some instances, the ground outside, for example, outside the gate or the fence might be sloping up, so it provides easier access than would be normally possible on an 8-foot fence. So extending that height to make that barrier safer for students. And the last is rolling gates. Rolling gates are a goal for the business services for the district at all sites so that we have easier access for employees to get into staff lots. We hope to accomplish this at all reasonably applicable sites over the next budget year. The first one that we are looking to convert would be here at the district office because we have a number of vehicles that are exposed. Right now we have a broken gate that is very difficult to roll. It broke this year over the winter, so it's a hazard for the employee who has to open it each day and close it because it's not rolling smoothly like it should. So it is taking a lot of effort, and it is potential injury. Yet we cannot leave it open because it exposes our entire white fleet to theft. We've already last year had multiple catalytic, and this was before the gate was broken, multiple catalytic converters stolen, as you may have heard and seen that in the news. That can cost several $1,000s per vehicle just for the replacement part, and then the installation, of course, as well. So it's a risk factor to leave the gate unfixed, either open ajar or closing it. Either way, it's a risk. So it's time to modernize those gates and make it easier access in and out with a remote clicker and pressure plates for the way out so that we can get out using pressure plates, get in using remote clickers. And again, this is something that we will be going out to bid for with more school sites in the coming year as well.
Trustee Lopez.
Yes, thank you. Dr. Burke, do you know if this company is a unionized organization?
We pay prevailing wage. If it's a unionized, I would imagine it is a unionized Red Hawk. But I did not look at that part of the bid, to be honest with you, before this meeting. But I'm sure they pay prevailing wage at the very least, and we do prefer union services. This is a single bidder for this event, so we didn't have that level of choice where we're comparing them to each other. So I don't have that information, but I can provide it in an update.
Any other questions? All right, I have a motion to approve CT 4278 by trustee Sarmiento with a second by trustee Bettencourt Castaneda. Please vote. We had. We had mentioned, since we did not have time between closed session and now, possibly stopping for a quick bathroom break before moving into the public hearing. Would the board like that moment? Okay. All right, we're going to take a few-minute pause so that we can be back definitely by 7 o'clock for our public hearing. Thank you. wait here a few seconds. Item 9A is to conduct a public hearing on by trustee area election system. We will now convene a public hearing under California Elections Code, Section 10010. The board must hold at least 2 public hearings over a period of no more than 30 days, at which the public is invited to provide input regarding the composition of potential trustee voting areas before the district's demographer draws draft maps of the proposed trustee boundaries of the district. And I would like to turn this over to our legal counsel.
Hello, thank you everyone for joining me here today. For those of you who are here at the last public hearing, this is going to be very similar information. There's not much has changed in that respect. This is the second of 2 pre-map public hearings where we're asking the community for their feedback regarding what they'd like to see in the maps before they're drawn. I'm joined tonight by David Cates, who is with MGT, who is serving as the district's demographer in this case. So I'm legal counsel from F3 Law, and I'll be talking about the law on the CDRA, what that means. And then when we turn to the demographics, I'm going to hand it over to David to discuss the numbers. All right, so what is the CDRA? This is an overarching law that took place in 2003. It's been, it prohibits the use of the term at-large election systems when those election systems impair the ability of a protected class to influence the outcome of an election. That's sort of the key language from the Elections Code. What's important to know about the CDRA is that there is no intent requirement. The CDRA is far broader than its federal counterpart, the Federal Voting Rights Act, and that means that it's much easier for prospective plaintiffs to bring suit against districts and to be successful in those suits against districts. Because proof of intent on the part of the voters or elected officials to discriminate is not required. Another important thing to keep in mind is that prospective plaintiffs get the right to attorneys and expert fees. What that means is that the cost of litigation can be passed on to the district. And we've seen with some districts that have chosen not to transition to by trustee area election systems, the costs have racked up hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars. So it's really a one-sided right for the prospective plaintiffs as well, because if districts are successful in defending against CDRA claims, they are not entitled to those same fees. So what is a by trustee area election system? This is a different sort of election system, whereas at large is all of the board members are elected by all of the members of the community at large. With the by trustee area election system, the district is essentially divided into different trustee areas, and then the board members are elected from the individuals who reside in those trustee areas. A by trustee area election system is the only safe harbor from a CDRA claim. So once the transition is made, and even during the process, there's a grace period where lawsuits cannot be filed against the district for the CDRA issues. Current step. Where we're at right now is we're in the pre-map public hearing process, which means that before David and his team start drawing the maps, we'd like to come out and solicit feedback from members of the community. And things that we want to see is things that we ask about is what should the composition of the trustee areas be? Once we have the maps in front of us, it's going to be a lot easier to take a look and say, oh, maybe we adjust this line, or maybe we switch these different trustee areas. But right now, we're just asking, without the benefit of maps, what communities of interest might make sense? What natural or man-made barriers might make sense in terms of the borders for the different trustee areas? So that's really the things we're going to be asking from the public tonight. Thank you.
Good evening, and just to walk you through some of the maps and the general information we provided here in the packet is we are, as demographers, working with Brandon and his firm, have certain restrictions. First, the most important one is to know what the total number of resident or population, I should say, within the district boundary based on the 2020 census. So it's not the numbers that there are now, it's what was there in the 2020 census. And our estimates is 56,520 people. Again, this is not voting age, this is strictly from 0 to 110 or whatever the ages might be. Everybody living within your district boundaries as of 2020, being 5 board members, trustee areas, we divide it by 5. So that's where we get the 11,304. That's the ideal. We try to make 5 equal areas out of that. And there's 635 census blocks. You can see those little color shaded areas. Those are the areas we can move around and cluster and form each of those 5 areas. That's what we have to work with. We have our own software tools that read in the census information. And as we group these, it tells us how many people are in each of these areas. So right what you see on the screen there, those are color shaded by density of just people. So the darker the areas, the higher the density, lighter, the less dense areas. Again, I will talk to that.
I can touch on
Yes.
this. So with the total population of 56,520, as David said, each trustee area will be approximately 11,304 people. In the law, there is a permissible 10% variance between the largest and smallest trustee areas. So that means that the difference between those can be about 1,130 people and still be permissible under the law. But once we start having the maps in front of us in the different scenarios, you'll see some might have 1 to 2% variance, some might have up to 10%, but we just can't go over that number of 10% variance. And as we just saw on the last slide, census blocks vary significantly in shape, size, and population totals. So that's really going to be the guiding line by which the demographer uses to prepare these trustee areas, because you're not allowed to split census blocks, which means kind of cut those different shapes in half or into thirds. That those need to stay together. So based on where people live, that's going to influence sort of how the map looks, because you're allowed to grab populations, but when you pull populations into different trustee areas, you must take the entire census block.
All right, so the map is the same line I just had on the previous slide, the density of the district. But once we, the demographer, make these maps, so let me just walk you through a little bit again the process. We don't look at first at any other criteria other than population counts. Okay? I mean, we might want to make it look a certain way, like a ball or a box, let's say, type of area, but we don't really look at anything like race or voting age when we're making the maps. We're just trying to make them balance. Once we get them within that variance that Brandon mentioned, then we take a look and provide additional layers of information. In this case, what the breakdown is by these race or categories here that the census uses. It's directly from the census. And you can see that almost exactly 1/3 of the population is under the Hispanic Latino category. What did I say? I'm sorry. 2/3. I should know math. All things. I apologize. 2/3 there. And you can see that the white percentage is at almost 8%. Asian is almost 19%. This is the district-wide breakdown. And you can see the 56,520. That's everybody. Okay. But there's also another criteria that we can look at. It's called the CVAP, Citizen Voting Age Population. So that number now that was 56,000 is now 37,882. These are people in the district of voting age. Doesn't mean they vote or that they, but voting age. And I think it's based on, that they are their citizens.
So with CVAP, it's not necessarily citizens, it just is the voting age population. And these are estimates. They're a little bit different than the census, which is a count of everyone. With CVAP, it really is more of an estimate than with the census.
So you can see the overall numbers it's a subset. And you can see the percentages. The Hispanic Latino number is lower, the white is higher, it's pretty close to the Asian now. But after we create a scenario that the numbers work, we then produce these numbers as well, share them with Brandon and his firm, and they make sure that the maps are compliant and that there's nothing that looks wrong with the numbers, or maybe we need to not include it as a scenario, or we need to make some revisions to it. So we work with them over the next few weeks with this process. And actually, let me go back. I'm sorry, one more. The map on here shows the Hispanic breakdown, with the darker ones being the density and kind of where that population is in relation to your overall district by those census blocks. The next one is the same. The map is for the Asian population. Again, this is the citizen voting age population. So the numbers on the chart are exactly the same, but the map shows concentration of the next largest breakdown of Asian, and that's the population of the Asian folks. And I'll turn back to.
Right, so what we're looking for here today in terms of this public hearing is feedback. Like, I would like to keep neighborhood X and neighborhood Y in the same trustee area because as members of the community, we feel that they always have been kept together, and that's not something that David and I would know. We looked at the map recently, and we've seen some dividing lines that we thought made sense. I think Interstate 5, the 805, the 54, those are all big dividing lines within the district. There's also Highland Ave, Division Street, National City Boulevard, Euclid Ave, and these are things that David's going to take a look at and see if it makes sense to divide along those lines so that the trustee areas are able to sort of have a dividing marker that they can keep in their mind and think, okay, we're trustee area 1 divides along these boundaries. It may make sense because it seems like a natural boundary, or it makes sense geographically. These are other things that the community can let us know as well as members of the board. So after this second pre-map public hearing, we turn into the map drawing phase. The demographer will use the 2020 census data and additionally permitted data that we discussed. And again, it's really important that population be as equal as possible. And that's looking at people, not citizens. The education code reinforces this by stating that trustee areas shall be as nearly equal in population. And again, looking at the permitted 10% variation between the largest and smallest trustee areas. I know it's hard to conceptualize this without having the maps in front of us, but at the next public hearing, we will have draft map scenarios and it'll make a little bit more sense then. All right, talking more about the law, what are the criteria for consideration that we're allowed to look at? Of course, the maps must all comply with the US Constitution, must comply with the California Constitution, and the really big keyword that we've been talking about is population balance, which means nearly equal number of inhabitants between the trustee areas. Also important to comply with the Federal Voting Rights Act, and as part of that, the district had to determine whether or not it was possible to create an election district or more than one election district in which a minority group is sufficiently large and geographically compact to constitute a majority. So it would be a majority of Hispanic individuals constituting a given trustee area. In this case, that was possible because the overall population of the district was already majority Hispanic Latino. So we think it will be likely easy for there to be at least one of the trustee areas that has a majority Latino population. However, we also took a look at the Asian population, and it wasn't possible based on where they live and the concentration of the Asian population to create a majority Asian trustee area based on that population. Other criteria for consideration that comes out of the recent Assembly bill and the Elections Code is that all of the trustee areas must be contiguous. That means they must be a shape, even if they are a strange shape, they must be a contiguous shape. Looking at local neighborhoods and communities of interest, city and census designated places, natural and artificial boundaries that we talked about, and also geographical compactness. Sometimes it makes sense to have smaller trustee areas if there's a harsh population there, and sometimes there'll be a really large trustee area if there's not a ton of population in that particular area. It's also important to look at other considerations, including local considerations, which are things that you all could point out to us. But it's key to know that as part of this process, the demographer and the district may not adopt boundaries for the purpose of favoring or discriminating against an incumbent, political candidate, or political party. This should really be done without reference to how it affects anyone currently on the board. Final thoughts. This does not change overall district boundaries. It doesn't change the school attendance boundaries. A lot of times we get questions about those two things, so we like to make it clear up front that we're not changing any of those. And it doesn't change how the district is governed. Each board member, regardless of the trustee area that they are in which they reside, they still owe a fiduciary duty to the entire district. So just as that's true today, it'll be true after this process is done. It's still one district with common goals and challenges. Taking a look at the schedule, we're now on this April 9th, 2nd pre-map public hearing. We'll move into the map drawing phase after this public hearing, and we'll have 3 different public hearings based on those maps. One will be on April 23rd, one will be on May 14th, and then one will be on May 28th. And then for that 3rd public hearing, directly after that public hearing at the same board meeting, there will be a map adoption. So those are the next 3 opportunities. And like I said, once we have the maps in front of us in the different scenarios, it'll make a lot more sense. And I think community engagement will also increase because they'll have actual scenarios that we can either make adjustments to or create new scenarios based on those feedback. All right, well, that finishes our presentation.
Trustee Lopez?
Thank you. Just had a clarifying question. Going back to the schedule for the map public hearing number 2, would that be just bringing back the maps from number 1, or are you taking revisions to number 1 to come back with new ones for number 2? What does that look like?
That'll depend on what happens at that first public hearing. If the community is happy with the maps presented, then we can move forward to the second map public hearing, and it'll be a very similar presentation to what happened in the first public hearing. But let's say, for example, the community wants to see adjustments, additional maps, and we get direction from the board to create those maps, then there could be different scenarios. We could delete scenarios, change scenarios. It really is at the direction of kind of what the community asks for and what the board directs. And that can happen again between map public hearing number 2 and 3.
What kind of time frame or allotted time do people have to see them? Like, is there an ahead of time look? Are we only allowed to look at them once they, like, in the meeting? Are they allowed to hang around so we can, like,
Sure.
how does that work?
Once the maps are created, they'll be published to the district website, and they'll be available to be viewed online at any time. That'll be true for this first pre-map public hearing. The maps will be released in advance of that public hearing. If the board gives us direction, we can also have printouts and either small printouts in terms of paper that can go home with people that want to take a look at them at home. We could also bring in blow-ups, large representations of those maps and have them placed throughout the boardroom. There really is a lot that we can do. But yes, to answer your question, there will be an opportunity for individuals to take a look at those maps when they're at home in their own leisure time. They won't be restricted by just seeing them here.
I have another question.
Sure.
And in light of federal changes, what's the potential there? I mean, this is demographics. What's the potential?
It's a good question. We haven't heard any stirrings, and we do monitor these things in terms of changes to federal law, and we haven't seen any discussions about change to California law in this respect either. If anything like that were to happen, it likely wouldn't be impacting this process as it occurs now, but it could impact, let's say, when the 2030 census comes out. Once we are through this process, there's a revision process that's much simpler than what we're doing now. And if there's any change to the law at that point, it will likely impact the revisions that happen later on. If something were to catastrophically change the course of the law as we've seen recently, then that's something that we just have to adjust and deal with as it happens. But we haven't seen really any changes with respect to what's happening with our process, changing to the by trustee area election system.
Any other questions from the platform? Dr. Burkett.
Yes, is a consideration given to how many schools might be in given trustee areas? Is it tried to be, is that, there an effort to balance that?
That's another thing that we can look at. We're not really trying to make the trustee areas specifically line up with attendance boundaries of different schools, but if it makes sense based on population, that's something that we can consider once we have the maps in front of us. If we want to see a scenario where we do track that more closely, we can prepare one.
Can I make how we dealt with this? It's also not to get too fixated on the school location, because you're more looking at the population. Maybe, again, we don't really look at and use the attendance areas as our guide, but how many schools are physically in there, it might not really be as big of an issue. It's more the population or where it goes to those schools. You know what I'm getting at. Okay.
Dr. Brady?
Has there ever been a scenario where a trustee area was created and there were 0 schools in that area?
I think that's happened. We've represented a number of districts where there's sparse population. That's really not the situation here. So there likely will be schools in most, if not all, of the trustee areas, but we have seen that in the past. Go ahead.
I personally haven't, but just thinking about it, there are districts that only have 1 school, elementary school. So in theory, it's going to definitely happen. I don't think it would obviously happen. I don't think in yours, but in theory, it could happen.
All right. As part of this public hearing, members of the public may submit comments on the establishment of voting area boundaries for the new trustee voting areas that will be established as part of the district's transition from an at-large election system to a by-trustee area election system. Speakers will be given 3 minutes to make comments on this matter and this matter only. We have received a card from 1 person at this time. Are there any others? I just want to make sure. Yep. Thank you. Who wishes to address this subject during the public hearing? Mr. Nieto? Thank you for coming.
Should I go voting or?
Yes, please.
Officially, my concern, you've already addressed it, making sure I'm involved with the city, going to city meetings, and thank you for the words of encouragement that the district team will keep a watchful eye to make sure the same problems don't carry over to this area. But I have 3 questions. These are just from the top of my head. Heard the lawyer talk here. I'm sorry, I forgot her name. and I, the purpose of the districting for the city was to district in a way that would allow people who were unrepresented to have their own district. And I thought it was, in my ways, I recall, it was actually districts where maybe ethnic-based, especially areas that have been traditionally Asian underrepresented. So I hear the lawyer talk, and he says that that's not an issue here. So I'm seeing some inconsistencies on what the lawyers were for the basis of the district for the city, and what I'm hearing for the lawyers talking in here in the school district. Maybe it's just me who doesn't understand it, but maybe that might help with a clarification. The other thing, I think it would be helpful to identify the school locations on both those maps. I know it's not, it's supposed to be population based, but I think it would be helpful in terms of people, parents having a concern, who's going to be the representative. Then the other thing I had is, the federal requirements. You hit right on it. Today's news might be not tomorrow's news, So, I do think that that's a concern that, maybe if you give it a little forethought, it should go, I think the trend seems to be anti-DEI right now. I don't know if that's something that should be considered in the district or not, but it's something should be talked about. Those are 3 questions I had.
Thank you, Mr. Nieto. Brenda, do you have responses for?
Sure, just touching on whether or not looking at the Hispanic and Asian populations are a concern. Of course, that's part of the California Voting Rights Act, which is to look at the protected classes in the community. And once we have the maps, I think it'll make a lot more sense. You'll be able to see the concentrations of different populations based on the census data, based on the citizens voting rights data, and there'll be 3 or 4 or 5 different scenarios that change those population numbers. And that'll be something that the community will be able to comment on and say, I like scenario A because the representation of the Asian or Hispanic populations are increased in scenario or in areas 1, 2, and 3. So it's hard to kind of articulate it now without having the draft maps in front of us, but I think it'll be a lot easier to understand once we do have those draft maps. Sure.
And hopefully maybe this will make more sense to you, because before we came here and put this PowerPoint together, there were certain asks of us by the law firms that we work with. One of them was, as he mentioned, can you make let's just think of this as 5 areas. Can you make at least one area where these classes like Hispanic, Latino is over 51% in an area? And the answer is an obvious yes. I mean, I don't have to demonstrate it. You could see it by your breakdown. The other one was the Asian. And what we were asked to do is, can you just practice and look around? Can you make an area that has about that population count, 11,000, I think it was, that has 51% or more Asian? That's what we were saying we couldn't do. It's 17%, I think that was the number. I don't have it in front of me there, of your district. I can go back here a bit just to check those numbers on the original Asian, sorry. I think it's this one. Asian is almost 19%, but because of where they're geographically listed, can you lasso an area where you can make the number jump up to 51%, the majority? And that's what I was saying. We couldn't do that for the Asian population. Doesn't mean there's areas that don't have maybe 30 or 40% Asian, higher than the number. We just couldn't get up to the 51% majority. So I just want to be clear. And we obviously were able to do that for this Hispanic, Latino in multiple areas. So those were the 2 classes why we looked at that. I'll explain that quickly.
Trustee Bencourt Castaneda.
I just wanted to, Mr. Nieto, answer your question again about the representatives of our district. Although we will be broken down by areas or locations, we won't have a district representative. And I was going to make the comment prior to you speaking, but as I mentioned to you before, you have my word that I will not be a representative of an area. I'm a representative of the district. And please not misinterpret the district versus the city, because we are not the same entity. We are not going to be divided. We're still going to be united, because we are still a district representing our entire unity of students and community. So although we will be separated by area, we are not going to be representative of 1 or 2 schools, depending on how we're divided, or no schools, depending on how we're mapped out. We will not be, or at least I can assure you, I can't speak for everybody. You have my word, and I said to you this earlier, I don't promise anything unless I can deliver. And I'm going to promise you that I'm not going to represent the area that I would be. And if I were to be reelected, only the area that I would be representing. So, and I can't stress that enough, that we are one district regardless of what area we are representing. we're not the same as city. So that's what I wanted to reiterate, because we do need to stress that to our families, our community, that we're not the same as a city council area. We are still one community of the Central District. So please.
Could I comment on that? Could I say that I like that?
Trustee Lopez.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to add to that, like, yes, our district is within the city of National City, but our district boundaries are different. We are expanded into Lake and Acres, so we also serve that population. So, legal counsel, can you confirm that our boundaries differ from this other agency?
Yes, that's correct. They're not the same entity. They have different boundaries, and we'll see once we have the maps in front of us that it'll make a lot more sense, the dividing lines and what the community members might want to see in terms of different geographical boundaries or man-made boundaries, as we've talked about.
In what other ways would you say are important to differentiate between the city and us as a school district?
I'm not sure I understand.
Well, I'm wondering if there are other areas that you would say apply.
Sure.
To us differently, because it seems like it's like your presentation very clearly says we owe fiduciary duty to the entire district.
Absolutely.
And so we aren't a sliver that we're responsible for. We are the whole. And I don't know if that's different for city council.
Yeah.
I don't know if with their areas, they're only they are only responsible to their area. So that's kind of, I guess.
Honestly, I don't know what the rules are for city council either.
Okay.
But what I can say is you're 100% correct that in this case with the fiduciary responsibilities of trustees is to represent the entire district. Not just if you're in trustee area 1, that's not your constituency, that's just the people who voted to elect you in that particular area.
Dr. Brady.
Yes, so I know you mentioned earlier that some natural boundaries were the 805 and the 94 and the some of the major throughways in National City, some of the streets. So I do like Mr. Nieto's point that our schools are spaced out around the district, so not per se for representation, but they might serve as a nice layout for looking at natural boundaries. So if at least one of the maps presented could include Mr. Nieto's idea, if possible, with the way the numbers may work out. I think that is something that people think of when they think of our district. They think of how the schools are laid out. So for geographical only purposes, I think that's a great idea.
I think that makes sense, and that's exactly the kind of feedback that we're looking for.
And as Brandon mentioned, that we will provide a web app or a dashboard that you'll be able to look at these. We should be able to have different, we'll call layers that you could turn on and off. We could add one, obviously, with your schools, turn them on and off. We can even, if need be, show attendance areas. Not that, again, that we're using that as criteria, but for your reference point. As I said, it's not the school, where the schools are, it's maybe the areas they represent. I've had some districts say, I want to have as much of each of the area touch as many school zones as possible. Might be a little tiny bit, but still, going back to what Brandon mentioned, you're representing still the whole district. But if we can somehow spread it out so you get a nice mix of 3 or 4 schools touching your zone, it might work out nicely. But again, we are driven by the population counts and where people live. So, like I said, we'll have different layers that you could turn on and off and be able to get some of those answers you're probably looking for reference.
These are Rancho teachers, but all of you, Rancho, right? How many of you were at a different school at some point? See, this is one of the things, honestly, about if we only focused on whatever school's sitting in our area, we would be disrespecting all of that. We have movement of employees. We have teachers who have been at one school, moved to another school. We have students and families who have moved from school to school. For us to act as if only the school that's sitting in our trustee area is our responsibility dishonors every single one of them. And so, we're back to you have my word. As long as I'm here, because it's not okay. When there is a shift at one school, every single teacher across the district is impacted. Because if, like, I don't know who your youngest person is, like, when you're talking seniority list for Rancho, I don't know who's the lowest person. But honestly, the way contracts work, it may, like, somebody gets bumped. If there's a narrowing, if we are losing students, somebody gets bumped. And then they're off to a different site, where they, like, hopefully where they need them, like, that's what happens. And everything, all the dynamic that was there gets moved and gets changed, and it impacts our students every day. And so we cannot act as if we have our own little kingdom that is our trustee area. It would be horribly wrong for us to do that. So this is a law and necessary, but the people represented here, the students represented here, they're the heart of what's going on. Okay, thank you, fine. But we are taking care of kids, and we are honoring their families, and we are respecting our employees. And that means we are watching for everybody, or we don't belong in this seat. So, we do have a request, though. I don't know who all you have contact with on your social media, but we need to get more people involved in these MAC things. And one of the points Mr. Nieto made with me last week was, why were there 2 people here to speak last week and only 1 person here from the community this week? The district posted it on NSD Now, and we're trying to get that stuff out. And it was posted earlier for the first meeting by Trustee Lopez, that we're like, help us please to have people so that this does represent the community and not just us, because it's the community's kids. So, okay. Any other? Okay. All right, thank you for all your comments. The public hearing to receive public testimony concerning the composition of potential trustee voting areas is now closed. All right, we have, due to our with flexibility, we are going back to item 12A, which is the presentation first, and then approval of National School District Audit Report and its findings. We will begin with the presentation. Dr. Burke.
Yes, thank you. We are required to annually have an audit. It looks at the prior year's activity, and we have 3 audits in place tonight. We have an audit report for the district, audit report for the bond measure HH, and then audit report for Integrity Charter School, whose books we also oversee and have responsibility for. Wilkinson, Hadley, King and Company are our auditing company, and we have Kevin Esmeralda here to present.
Hello, everybody. My name is Kevin Sproul. I am one of the partners at Wilkinson Hadley King, and I was the partner who oversaw the National School District audit for the 23-24 fiscal year. As I go through the audit report, the way that I typically do my presentation is I will kind of highlight each section of the audit report, do a really brief overview of what the section kind of does for the audit report itself. I'll talk a little bit about the financials in one of the supplemental sections. I'll talk about any findings that there are, and then I'll open it up for questions. So I'm going to start on the independent auditor's report, which is the first letter that's in the audit report on right after the table of contents on page 1. And we were able to issue a unmodified audit opinion, which is the audit opinion that you do want on your financial statements. So following the management discussion and analysis are the basic financial statements. And those start on page 14. So there are government-wide financial statements and then governmental financial statements. And those have to do with the modified accrual accounting method that school districts in California have to operate under through GASB. And then the full accrual or government-wide financial statements that they convert to, where capital assets and debt are added through the conversion entries. And there is a reconciliation schedule for both the balance sheet and the statement of net assets for those two statements. There is a schedule in the supplemental area that talks a little bit more about kind of a high view of the financial statements and kind of the expenditures and revenue and everything like that versus kind of getting right down into this. You are more than welcome to go through the individual numbers themselves, but I tend to go on that supplemental schedule when I look at the numbers.
Excuse me, Mr. Sparks. Do you have this so that we could project?
I did not. I was not told to bring up.
Okay, I'm just.
Can we just pull up the exhibit from the agenda item from the website?
Okay. We can do that.
No problem.
Just gives everybody something to follow and track with you, please.
That's why I was kind of looking over here. I was like, I wasn't sure if somebody was.
Thank you.
No, down. Okay, so this was the first letter that I mentioned with the unmodified audit opinion. And then I'll just show you what I mentioned with the management discussion and analysis. And this is an unaudited schedule that is prepared by management and then put into the audit report. And then these are the basic financial statements. So I mentioned how the normal governmental financial statements are a modified accrual, and then they go through a conversion entry process where the debt and the capital assets, basically any long-term pieces, are converted from modified accrual to full accrual onto the district's books. So these are the government-wide ones where those pieces have been added. So this is those are the government-wide. These are the governmental, where it shows the major funds and then all of the non-major funds are combined. And I'll show you where later in the audit report those non-major funds are shown in the schedule. And then I mentioned the reconciliation schedules for those government-wide to the governmental schedules. You have one for the balance sheet and for the statement of activities. So this is the one for the balance sheet. And this is the one for the statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balances. I say activities because it's a whole lot less work. Following the basic financial statements is probably the most cumbersome part of the audit report, but it serves really important purposes of the audit report. It's the notes section. Any of you who have sat through a presentation of mine before, this is where I like to make my favorite joke. If you have trouble sleeping, please print this out, keep it on your side table. This is better than Ambien, but it is very important. This is where the district policies over their accounting, capital asset policy, all of those things are summarized in this first section in Note A. And then after Note A is the important part for anyone who is trying to kind of dive deeper into the financial statements themselves, because this is the secondary purpose of these notes to the financial statements. All of those lines on, like the balance sheet and whatnot, are then broken down into more detail as you go through the notes. So you see this cash note, instead of just saying cash, now you see how it's cash in county treasury, a fair market value adjustment, and cash in banks. If I scroll down a few pages, you can see instead of just one line for accounts receivable, there's basically an entire page for a note. You can see on this long-term obligation, there's, instead of just one line on the government-wide financial statements, there is, I think, 5 total pages where it goes through the general obligation bonds, the bond premium, the leases payable, the subscriptions payable. It has all of the different notes. It has the breakdown of each of those bonds, the beginning balance, the current year payments that happened, the ending balance, the payment schedules. All of those things are within this notes section. And so if anyone is trying to go from those basic financial statements and then dig down a little bit deeper, this is where you would go. Following the notes to the financial statements are the first of the required supplementary information, and that's the budgetary comparison schedule. Every major fund that is a special revenue fund is required to have a budgetary comparison schedule. For National City this year, it was only the general fund that was required to have it. Following the budgetary comparison schedule are several 10-year schedules that are required for the pension and for OPEB. And then following all of these schedules are the notes to the required supplementary information. Any differences between the budget and the final actual for the budgetary comparison schedule have to be noted, and a small reason has to be given. And then any notes for both CalSTRS and CalPERS for the pension note have to be also put on here. These are very standard notes for both CalSTRS and CalPERS. So I mentioned the non-major funds are combined on the basic financial statements. So following those required supplementary information is where you will find the combining statements for the supplementary information. And this is where you have a combining balance sheet and that combining statement of revenues. And the non-major funds are grouped by the same categories that you've kind of heard me mention. There's the special revenue funds, there's capital project funds, and then debt service funds. And so each of those funds is listed individually within these schedules. And so again, it's another way to take that one column that was in those basic financial statements and get a little bit more detail within it. Following the combining statements is other supplementary information. So we've got average daily attendance. We've got schedule of instructional time. We've got schedule, financial trends, and analysis. I'm going to stop here for a second because this is the schedule that I had mentioned, how I like to use this schedule to kind of look at the financial trends, like it says, of a school district, because it not only has revenues and expenditures listed right on this schedule, it also has ADA listed on this schedule. And I think too often people just look at financials and don't also look at ADA as one of the factors that really drives those numbers. Because there are a lot of districts that have experienced a decline in ADA over the past several years due to COVID and other external factors. And so you'll see in 2022, the district's ADA was 3,760. However, in 2024, it was 3,782. So National City has actually done a lot of work to bring students in to the district. And you can see that reflected in the increases in revenues. And a lot of people will say, oh, but look at how the expenditures have increased. Yes, that's what happens when costs go up, when you have to employ teachers, when everything costs money. And so that's why I always like to go more to this schedule when we talk about kind of those financial trends. Because you can kind of see that bird's eye view, where things have gone. Okay, is the ADA up? Is the ADA down? And just where things have been, where things are going. And also, if you have some of the knowledge from prior years, were some of those funds or expenses one time, or are they recurring? And I think a lot of those things are very important factors to remember as you're discussing the health of a district. And another thing that we put on this schedule is also the available reserves as a percentage of total outgo. So it's a really good factor to determine the health of the district going forward. After these schedules there's the schedule of expenditures of federal awards. If a district spends more than $750,000 in federal revenue for a year, they are required to get a single audit, which is an additional audit on top of the normal required audit by the state. Most of the districts that I audit are required to get a single audit, but there are additional procedures, additional schedules that are required to be performed, and so this is one of those schedules. So following those are the letters. There is the government auditing standards letter, and because accountants are such funny people, we call this the GAS letter. And it's basically a letter that talks about the internal controls over the district. and if there were any findings over the financial internal controls. That's followed by the federal letter on internal controls and if there were any findings there. Then the state letter, and the state letter includes a table that is directly from the audit guide that is put out by the state controller's office, and if procedures were performed or not on that audit guide, and those letters are followed by the schedule of auditors' results. So the schedule of auditors' results summarizes all of the major letters that I discussed during this. So the type of auditor's report was unmodified for the financial statements and the federal awards. We did have a significant deficiency that we identified over the financial statements. We did not identify any federal issues where we had to issue a finding. And then we did have a finding in the state compliance, which I know all the board members are probably, some of you are probably some that skipped to the end of books. I'm looking over there. You know, yes, I will talk about the findings now. For the financial statements, the issue that came up during the audit through interview process and through other processes were some of the bid procedures. And it came to our attention that some of the bid procedures that are required by the state of California for school districts and LEAs appear to have potentially not been followed through all of the contracts that the district had entered into. It was not a case where we as auditors could say it was absolutely not followed, but it was a case where we were not able to say that they were for sure followed 100% of the time in everything that we looked at. So we felt that it was appropriate to issue a finding and recommend that the district competitive bid procedures ensure that they are followed by all employees of the district and ensure that any current projects are compliant with the competitive bid procedures. For state compliance, we had one student who was missing the backup for unduplicated pupil count, and that is one area in the state controller's audit guide that even if it is one single student out of 180 that we tested for the district, it is a finding. And there are two options that the district can choose between. It can take an extrapolated error rate where we take the number of students that we tested and we divide it by, we divide the number of errors by the number of students we tested and apply it to the entire population, or we can test the entire population of that district. And we took the extrapolated error rate and we lowered the free or reduced price meal student count for unduplicated pupil count by 7. And this did have a potential fiscal impact of $23,000. What that means is that the district has the opportunity to appeal this finding once the audit report has been accepted by the state controller's office and go through the appeals process. And the potential fiscal impact could be the entire amount, it could be part of the amount, or it could be none of the amount. That is entirely up to the state. And then as far as that, we just recommended that the process for the CalPADS reporting include all relevant information to ensure that accurate and complete reporting was done for all students. So those were the two findings, and I'm sure that there are some questions.
Trustee Bettencourt Castaneda.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to know with staff, how can we avoid these kinds of incidents to not happen moving forward?
Yeah, it's important to remember that, or that I remind you that these stemmed from there's two findings that are identified in this audit. They are from the 23-24 school year. And the one related to contracts, the work occurred in July of 2023. The contracts were signed in a transitionary period before I was here. So part of what occurred, I'm actually happy to talk about this because it gives me a chance to say, hey, we did some good work early on, even though it's a tough subject to discuss. There was some contracts signed in the spring of 2023 that initiated the work that was done in the summer of 2023. I arrived May 9th. After those contracts had been signed, the work had started, and the work completed. It crossed over into the year. And again, there were no findings on that. It's just, it was looked at, and we actually did discuss it with the county because that was something that I became aware of as well at the time, in real time, as that work was conducted. And so we discussed it with the county office. We gave clarification of the source of the misunderstanding, that there was folks in the business department operating under the understanding that some bid rules had been suspended due to COVID relief and the COVID process, but they were no longer suspended as of that January. But we had members on the team that maybe weren't aware of that or weren't up to speed. We became aware of it. One of the things that the board approved in July of 2023 was CASBO institutional membership at mine and Dr. Brady's request. And that was one of the business items. We've been members of CASBO, and the members of the team have all participated in hundreds of hours of training since then. I have zero concerns that we are not following bid splitting, following bid requirements and procurement requirements since the day I arrived on any contract that we've signed since. So I don't have concerns that we aren't following that between the training that has been provided to all team members, including myself, that I've participated in from various groups, including CASBO, California School Business Officials Organization, and the oversight that I've taken part in seeing all contracts and reviewing them, and before we go to contract, I have no concerns that has recurred since that date. Regarding the other item, the other finding was related to a lunch count item. The process prior to my arrival, it was still the process that first summer when I came on board. Again, it was May when I came on board, and part of the registration process, registration starts in spring, and part of the registration process was we had paper surveys that parents were filling out to indicate, various things about the registration, including their income level. In addition to the paper surveys that people were filling out, we had to, as a district, make calls to parents to follow up if we weren't getting survey data returned in a timely manner. Prior to registration, we would need data from the parents. So people on our team were calling, in our district, we're calling parents to get information from the survey and manually entering that into CNS software called Primero Edge. So what was happening is that the parents were using the paper survey to fill out information. We had people calling and gathering additional information from parents that did not participate in the paper survey, manually entering that data into Primero Edge. Then that data was moving from Primero Edge into Synergy. So there was a data transfer. And in that process, there was, as our auditor has identified, a parent or guardian's data who was identified as a low-income parent of a student, a parent of a student from a low-income home, and that was an improper entry, either manually entered on the phone or in the data transfer from Primero Edge to Synergy. That was the process that was in place for 9 years, the 9 school years prior to my coming on board, and there hadn't been any findings with that process, so it seemed like it was secure to do it that way. We had that, and that wasn't found until this year, but we had already made the adaptations in our process. Because anytime you're moving data around manually, or anytime you have data going from one system to another system, there's inherently potential for either human error or error in data transfer, and that is, that's just a fact. So even though it hadn't happened in the 9 years prior to my arrival, we weren't satisfied with that process, and we updated to everything going direct into Synergy. You may recall that that is a process, part of the registration process that parents do now. They put all their info into the student information system directly. And then, so it's not being transferred anywhere, and our accounts are beginning this year, 24-25, coming directly from that Synergy, directly from the parents. So we've eliminated that step that created or could have created either human error or data transport for error already. So that I think the two audit findings were eliminated within our district and within our department prior to our becoming aware of them through an audit process in real time.
Thank you. And just for, thank you for clarifying in detail. And those, trying to think of the word, anything that we pay out, the county also verifies. So if they would have found anything that would have looked inappropriate, they would have stopped it. So it wasn't something that we did erroneously anyways.
Right. It was exactly. The county has oversight of our finance and our financial transactions. This is true.
Thank you for the clarification.
Trustee Lopez.
Yes, thank you. On page 45, going into 46, we have 7 subscriptions to educational services. So I would like to hear more from staff on what is the plan for those subscriptions? Are we keeping those? Are they working out? What was the plan behind these? And what's the goal moving forward? So I can name them. We have GoMath, Benchmark, Summit Literacy, Elevation EL software for GoMath, our payment software, EdPoint software. So want to know more of it the same or what are they?
Okay, so I think I'll jump in. So I think these are just, and correct me if I'm wrong, you audited several purchases from educational services in terms of the software, and that's what's written in here.
So GASB 96 took effect 2 years ago, and that is a accounting pronouncement that basically meant that any software that was above your capitalization threshold that was over 1 year in length, the term of it was over 1 year in length, had to be recognized on the books versus just expensed. And so normally before 2 years ago, these would have been just an expense. But as of 2 years ago, they now show up on the debt items and they get amortized in straight line amortization over the life of that subscription. And then on the next page, you see each of those, the current year additions and then the current year principal. Most of those were paid in full. And so there is no liability as of June 30, 24.
So I think that a follow-up to your question is probably not something for the audit report, but we are currently looking at all of our software as an educational services department. And we will be, and I think part of it was in the survey for the LCAP too. So we'll be looking at that and bringing that forward to the board with a full report of what we're asking to continue, what we're looking at modifying, maybe instead of having it at the district level, maybe it'd be a site level purchase, and what we're looking to eliminate due to low usage or needs having changed. And so we'll be breaking that down for the board, having a rich discussion before asking you to approve any annual contract.
Dr. Burke.
Yes, I would just add to that, as Mr. Sproul mentioned, that we had a lot of one-time money come in, and that the intention of that the funds was to provide intervention services to students who had challenges keeping up with grade level expectations due to pandemic interruption of services and education, which was, took place for a long time, especially in South County, where we were denied the opportunity by the purple rating system to go back into in-person classes as quickly as some of the other regions. So that provided additional challenge. So a lot of the interventions, software that we do have was, contracts purchased with that intention to help close that gap. I should say also as one-time money goes away, it's our fiduciary responsibility to look at effectiveness and keep what's working and eliminate what's not as effective or what we're seeing isn't as being used as much.
Any other questions? I will throw out there, as a mom, that I'm filling out those lovely red and white papers that are or were the free and reduced lunch. I did have that experience myself of my son coming home. No, well, he did, the things hidden in the backpack. No, but he came home when he went to middle school, very happy to be eating lunch every day. And I was pretty sure that my son should not be just eating their lunch. He didn't need anything from me. He did not need a thing. And I finally made a phone call about a month and a half in because I was afraid we were going to end up owing a whole lot of lunch money at the end of the school year, to find out that they had misentered a number. And it was a simple clerical error, but it still was a clerical error. He, of course, was very disappointed that he was not receiving free lunches anymore. Apparently, whatever I had was not nearly as interesting for lunch. But I mean, it's not that we don't take these things seriously, but I'm thankful that it was one. And anyway. Dr. Brady.
Okay. And just for clarification, how does something become a finding versus like a recommendation? So I guess my question is, if there was something that occurred outside of this fiscal audit, potentially, but there's no finding that it really happened, but it could have happened. How does it become a finding here, not just a caution and a recommendation? So there's just not a place to put like caution, so we put it in as a finding just to not lose track of it, or I guess
So it depends on what the item is, because there are mechanisms that auditors have that we can use. We can use it, what's called a management letter. But the reason why we use them less nowadays versus just a couple of years ago is the state has the ability to reject an audit report and send it back to you and say, I don't know why you gave us this management letter. This is a finding and we're rejecting your audit report until you write it as a finding and send it back to us. And that has been the experience more often in the last several years versus just, probably about 4 years ago versus the last 4 years. The state is not accepting management letters and they just want everything as a finding now.
So even if it didn't happen in this fiscal audit year, it can be a finding in this fiscal audit.
If an expense happens in the fiscal audit year, it did happen in the fiscal audit year.
So even if the contracts are signed in the other year, the payment was made in this fiscal year. Okay, that's the clarification I was looking for.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
And again, to clarify, thank you, sorry, I didn't push the button. To clarify, the work was from 2 summers ago and the contract was from 2 springs ago, and the payment would have gone out in July of 23. So the audit year is 23-24. So just for public clarification.
It was a while ago, but we deal in the past.
All right. Well, then it looks like we're at the second half of 12A, which is the approval of the National School District Audit Report and its findings. So,
Motion to approve.
Second.
thank you. Questions? All right, I have a motion to approve by trustee Lopez, a second by trustee Sarmiento. Item 12B, presentation and approval of National School District Measure HH Bond Audit Report, which is Exhibit C. We will begin with the presentation portion.
Hi, my name's Kevin. No, I'm kidding. Okay, thank you so much. So this is the Measure HH bond audit that we also performed. One of the nice things that we are able to do as auditors, I'm going to let you pass that out while I talk. One of the nice things that we're able to do as auditors is if we also do the bond audit, then during our normal audit, we can, while selecting expenditures, we can also select bond expenditures, and while looking at board minutes, we can also pull the Citizen Oversight Committee minutes. And so we can do a lot of things at the same time while we're already here to make sure that we get all the work done. And that makes it to where my job gets a little bit easier, and that's nice for me. So the bond audit is a lot more straightforward. It is not going to be 120 pages like the one we just went through, so that's nice. So the first page that is on a bond audit is basically just a summary of the measure and then the Citizen Oversight Committee. And then that is followed still by an opinion letter. So just like before, we do have an unmodified audit opinion. Now, one thing I do want to mention, when all of the bond funds have been issued for Measure HH, one of the paragraphs that will go onto this first letter is a going concern paragraph. I want to let you know right now, because everyone always freaks out the first time they see a going concern paragraph, because in their head, going concern is we don't have any money, okay? For a bond audit, a going concern paragraph stays in the audit report once everything has been issued until the bond spends all of those funds. So basically, once everything's issued, the audit reports are still required until all the funds have been spent. And so that going concern basically says, hey, they've issued all their funds. And so now until they spend all those funds, they still have to have an audit report. And so this going concern says there's no more funds to be issued. Just a little future heads up. After the letter, we still have an MD&A, management discussion and analysis. And it's going to look very similar, just a lot smaller schedules. And then we still have the basic financial statements. However, we don't have to worry about the modified accrual and all that, because we're just dealing with one fund. We're just dealing with the Measure HH building fund now. So it's a lot smaller, a lot easier to manage. So we've just got the balance sheet, we've just got the statement of revenues. And then, as I said before, we still have the notes to the financial statements. So they will still talk about the bond fund and the policies that the bond fund operates under, but it's just going to be a lot more condensed. Following those, we will still have the fair value measurements and the cash note, AR note, very, very similar to the district audit. And we will still have the debt note. However, you will notice if you were to look at the district audit versus the bond audit side by side, the bond audit is much smaller for the general obligation bonds and the debt note, because the only debt that we will show in the bond audit is the specific bonds that were issued for Measure HH. And so that is what we show as the beginning balance, any decreases, ending balance, and then the payment schedules specific to these bonds. The only supplementary schedule are any project lists where the schools that might have any projects that are worked on, any potential projects that the bond could be paid for. And then there are 2 letters to end it. Once again, we have the gas letter. Haha, I'm awesome. Which is the internal control letter. And then we have the special letter that's just for bonds. And it's the independent auditor's report on performance. And so this is a little bit of a different letter because it kind of has a couple of things that says, hey, these are the special things that we're going to do for a bond audit, and here's how it went. So we had internal control evaluation, and the results determined that internal controls were designed just fine. And then we had a test of expenditures, and we found that they were in compliance. We had a test of the bid procedures for the bond were just fine because, you know, as we discussed in the district one, the issue that we had there did not overlap with what the bond specifically was doing. We had the facility site review with the expenditure reviews, the project photographs that we saw with the facilities individuals. And then we had, there's 2 different things with the oversight committee compliance. There's basically, did they have meetings, and then were there all the appropriate members? And both of those we were able to mark that that was fine. And so on the state scheduled auditor's results, we were able to say unmodified and mark no on everything for the bond audit, which is great. Any questions for the bond audit? This one was a lot quicker, a lot easier.
Motion to approve.
Okay, all right. I have a motion to approve. Second?
Second.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? All right, I have a motion to approve by trustee Lopez with a second by trustee Sarmiento. Please vote.
And it's happened to see the
Okay. Thank you. And item 12C is the presentation and approval of Integrity Charter School Audit Report and its findings. We will start with the presentation.
Okay, so this one is a little bit longer than the bond one, but still a lot shorter than the district one, so don't worry. Once again, we are going to start very similarly with the independent auditor's report letter. We had an unmodified audit opinion for Integrity Charter School. And then, I mentioned the district audit had the modified accrual and then went to full accrual. Charter schools are nonprofit organizations in the state of California. So they get to operate under full accrual the whole time. So their capital assets, any debt they have, it's just all on the books. They record depreciation, they do all of that with their actual accounting the whole time. So there's no conversions that need to be done. So there's no special schedules that need to be entered. However, they do have some different schedules from what you would have seen in the district. So on the basic financial schedules, we do have the statement of financial positions, so that's like the balance sheet, followed by the statement of activities. And then we have the statement of functional expenses. So on the district audits, this is kind of boiled into one of the schedules, but on these, we actually break it out individually. So this is taking 2 lines on the statement of activities, and it is breaking it out into the different kind of functional areas of the different expense categories for the charter school. And then we have the statement of cash flows, and we show it in the direct and the indirect method. The top is the is the direct method, and the bottom is the reconciliation for the indirect method. And you see that they both have the same net cash provided by operating activities, so that you can see that they reconcile to the same amount. And then following the basic financial statements is, guess what? Those same notes to the financial statements. Similar to all those other reports, this is a very important area for all reports. It gives the details on how that entity operates. One of the things that I will mention, in both the district and the bond report, there will be a similar table. Those will be for GASB. This was for FASB, which nonprofit entities operate under. And these are, in this notes section, these are the pronouncements for FASB that went into effect this year. And if there were any that had a direct effect on the charter school, there would be a note to that effect here. Like last year, the leases pronouncement went into effect. And so there was a small paragraph on the leases pronouncement here. Following that are similar to the things, cash note, accounts receivable note, prepaids, property and equipment. So similar, you have all those line items on the balance sheet, and then within the notes, you have some expansion of those line items. So if you wanted to get into more detail, you are able to use the notes and financial statements in order to do that. Okay, so we're going to skip past there. So similar to how I said in the notes, you had what pronouncements went into effect this year. At the end of the notes for each entity, you will have the upcoming pronouncements. And we do have a column in which year they will become effective. Now, this does seem like a big table. A lot of these things will not actually have any effect. Because if you look at them, it's talking about derivatives and hedging. Charter school is not going to be involved in derivatives and hedging. But we're going to put it on here because FASB says this is what's coming down the pipeline. And we want to make sure we're being thorough when we give an audit report to the public. So supplementary information, very similar to what you've seen in other audit reports. We have the schedule of ADA, schedule of instructional time, schedule of financial trends and analysis. As I've said before, this is just a really good schedule to use. You can see the increase in ADA. You can see the increase in revenue. You can see the unrestricted net assets as a percentage of total expenses. It's kind of stayed very similar throughout the years. That ADA at P2 has kind of dipped and come back up. So it's been pretty static as you've seen some of those revenues from the ESSER grants and those things have influxed over the years. And so that is an important factor as you look at the kind of those ups and downs of a charter school. And also an important factor, especially when I am looking at a charter school in this schedule. When I'm looking at the budget, I prefer to see a budget that even if the current year might show a big surplus, I want to see a budget that is definitely more conservative and closer to that balanced than a continued projection of a huge surplus. Because we all know that just because you have a surplus in one year does not mean it's going to continue to be a surplus going forward. So that is, I think it's a good thing seeing a much more conservative budget in 2025 than even what 2024 revenues versus expenses showed. Following those, Integrity did have over $750,000 in federal expenditures as well. And so the charter team did perform a single audit for Integrity as well. And so this is the schedule of federal awards and the notes. And then there's the board composition, followed by the other independent auditor results. So once again, you have the gas letter, the federal letter, the state letter, with a much smaller table because it's just the middle section that applies to just school districts, county offices of education, charter schools, and then the charter school section. And then that is followed by the auditor's results. And so as you can see on this, there was an unmodified audit opinion on the financial statements, on the federal awards, and on the state awards. And there were no audit findings to be reported. Any questions on integrity? That was a weird way to put it. Any questions on the integrity charter school audit report?
All right, do I have a motion to approve?
Second.
And no questions? All right, I have a motion to approve by trustee Benford Castaneda, a second by trustee Sarmiento. Please vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And for coming out and sharing this with us. Appreciate it.
And by the way, how is Bob Wilkinson doing?
He lives in Utah now. So
Oh, he's
yeah.
retired.
Yeah, he retired. He lives in Utah. He has one grandbaby that lives with him. And so he loves that. And yeah, no, he's doing good.
Good for him. Thank you. Glad to hear that.
Yep.
Thank you for your reports.
No problem.
Very thorough, and in fact, you're far more thorough than Bob ever was.
You go just to the back of the book and say.
Right? Right.
Have
Thank
a good
you.
night.
Thank you. All right, we have already addressed item 12D, so item 12E to approve CT 4279 with RGC General Engineering for bid number 24-25-08B for outdoor learning center installation at El Torreon School. Do I have a motion to approve?
Second.
Dr. Berg.
Very excited about this project. If you've been to the school recently, there's an area right when you pass through the office that has, it's been kind of like in a tear down state this school year, and there's going to be an outdoor learning space put into that location. So right outside the school office. And we had 4 bids on that one, and the low bid was $101,000. RGC General Engineering, who we've done other projects with. So they were the winning bidder.
Any questions? All right, I have a motion to approve CT 4279 by trustee Bettencourt Castaneda and a second by trustee Sarmiento. Please vote. Item 12F to approve CT 4280 with Western State Builders, Inc. for bid number 24-25-09B for playground installations at multiple school sites. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve. Second.
Dr. Berg.
Yes, the preschool center, the Little Red Schoolhouse, Central School, Central's Preschool and Rancho, and Las Palmas will all have playground projects where we are removing and eliminating existing outdated structures and replacing them with new structures. The winning bidder on this was a closer bid. Western State Builders was the winning bid. It's $938,000 for all sites.
Questions? Quick question. Do we have a timeline for those, like just a ballpark?
Yes, we expect all of those to be complete prior to the next school year.
Okay. Motion, let's see, I have a motion to approve CT 4280 by trustee Bettencourt Castaneda, the second by trustee Sarmiento. Please vote.
Item passes 3 yes, 1 abstain.
And board cabinet communications, item 13, trustee Lopez.
Thank you. I just want to say welcome back to our students and staff. I hope you had a restful spring break. And congrats again to Jose Luis Aguilar Arias, our warehouse delivery driver, as our employee of the month for the month of April. And welcome again to Ivan, Lisbeth, Angel, Daniela, Diana to our team. We are so grateful you are here. And also happy Week of the Young Child to all of our students in our district. And happy Easter and Resurrection Day to all those who celebrate. Thank you.
Trustee Sarmiento.
I concur with what was just stated, instead of going through all that. But I just want to say this is the first board meeting where we've got 3 separate audit reports and got a little lengthy, but glad to see that they're still at it. Thank you. That's all I have.
Trustee Bettencourt Castaneda.
Thank you. I'd like to welcome our new employees to the NSD family. Also, thank you to our audit presentation. He was very thorough, like was mentioned, and we just go to the back and just talk about funding, so he was very thorough this time. And I'd like to welcome everybody back from Easter break. Probably was a much needed break for everybody. Our parents are probably excited to send their kids back to school. Thank you, Dr. Barrett, for your support. Once again, bringing you back from retirement. And congratulations to our employee of the month. And have a nice evening.
Dr. Burke.
Yes, also Jose Luis, he makes everyone he sees smile. He's always got such a great attitude, so congratulations to him. He's just an awesome guy. Yvonne also is our new custodian, the night custodian, the very tall gentleman that was here tonight. We're very thrilled to have him at the district office. The district office has not had custodial since I've been here really consistently. Because of course we're going to take care of the schools first. But this is a good sign that we're fully staffed in our custodial team, the fact that we're able to have him here. And he's been here for about a month, was serving as a sub before that, and is also a very pleasant, wonderful guy and does a great job. Everything is looking great. So we're very proud of the work he's doing as well.
Dr. Kevin.
I would concur with what everyone just said. I would just want to welcome everyone back from spring break and hope you had fun with family and friends. And welcome to the new employees. And definitely I would concur with Dr. Burke on our 2 employees that we've worked with. And I look forward to working with the rest of the new employees.
Dr. Baird.
Well, first of all, thank you. I'm enjoying my time back with National. Not so much audit reports, but all the other stuff has been, it's been nice, and it's a wonderful team that you have here. So I do enjoy that aspect of it. Doing a lot of work with the department. We're pulling together the LCAP and have attended a couple of our DPAC DLEC meetings where input was given, which was really just again another wonderful group of people that had a lot of great things to say about the district and the work that your team is doing here. We are obviously pulling that together for a full board report. Looking at some of the principal teacher professional development between now and the rest of the school year, trying to truncate that a little bit. We know how overwhelmed people are between now and the rest of the year, and there are lots of major things happening out there, testing and various other things happening. So just trying to reduce where we can, refocus, but still continue, obviously, some of the high-level training that goes on in the district. One example of that is we've got principals that were scheduled to have, I think it was 5 additional days of essential elements of instruction training, which they've already started. We've reduced that to a half-day training at their school with the mentor that's providing that training. Just one example of what we're trying to do to keep the focus on the schools and the work that our teams are doing there. We are doing a review of discipline, social emotional alerts, and 9/11 data within the district. So just trying to get a handle on that, see if there's outliers and what that might be telling us and what we can do about that. We mentioned already, we're looking at our software program. So our team is working hard on that, and we should have that available for a board review coming up. Working on the EVOP ACES program, that's the Expanding Learning Opportunities program or after school stuff. And I believe at the next board meeting, we will have to report to the board on what that looks like. And just lots of other great things happening. I'm trying to get out to meet with all the principals, look at the schools and get their feedback on, in terms of what Ed Services can do for the school site in terms of our support. between now and the rest of the year. And we are working hard with our HR department on making sure that I can go back into retirement and hire a new assistant superintendent of educational services. So, thank you.
Dr. Brady.
I think I still see more things on that list of yours.
There were, I went through.
Scrolling onto the next page. Okay, well, I want to I think I want to do a little calendar review and make sure you have some things on your calendar. So first, I want to remind the board that we have a special board meeting at the end of April, on April 29th from 4 to 6 at Rancho de la Nacion. That'll be our last LCAP meeting where we're going to be looking through all of the input that has been gathered and getting some final input for that final draft that you'll see in June. On May 1st, that's our 24th annual San Diego Leadership and Biliteracy Symposium, and I know some of you have already RSVP'd. That's going to be down at the San Diego Marriott, and that will be honoring two of our employees, Claudia Miranda from Kimball, and also Martha Ortega, our classified office admin from John Otis. I learned since the last board meeting and over the break that the National City STEM Collaborative was awarded the Impact Award from the Classroom of the Future Foundation, and that's going to come with $10,000 to work on a community collaborative of STEM activities to kind of bring our community partners together. You probably remember they did 16 weeks of STEM, and it helped our parents do STEM activities at home both during and after COVID. And so we're part of that collaborative, and we're super excited because all that money is going to benefit our students and our middle school and high school students as well. That's going to be awarded at SeaWorld on, hold on, there's a lot of dates here. It's May 15th, sorry, at 5, I think it's at 4 p.m. If you want to go, let me know. But we also have a conflict right here in National City. Arts is going to be hosting a Brights Lights event honoring those who create impact. And we just found out that they will be honoring Steven Sanchez at that. And Steven knows, so we're super excited. We'll be making an announcement to the district so others know. But if you want to go to either of those events, please let us know. Same time. Same time. That one is from 5 to 7 p.m. That overlapping time. And then the last thing I want to put on your two more. The Global Forum, the students gave you your golden ticket. That will be at the Fleet Science Center, the collaboration on the global goals between San Ysidro School District, National School District, Del Mar, and Encinitas School Districts. That's going to be 9 to 1. We'd love for board members to come. I know they invited you for Friday. That's their prep day. If you want, I think you have a scheduled visit. You can pop in, but they'll be prepping for the forum. The forum is really the day to come and see them in action at the Fleet Center. That's on Earth Day on April 22nd from 9 to 1. And if you'd like to ride the bus, let us know. They got a big charter bus donated with one of our community partners, so they're super excited to show up in style. And there's going to be 200 kids in collaboration that day, so we're proud that our student roundtable will be part of that. And then May 14th and May 28th are our regularly scheduled board meetings. What we have normally done is had one of those board meetings just be dedicated to all of our awards. We start with the adults and end with the students. And then the second board meeting, we've been focused on our May business items. Because we have public hearings for both of those, we are suggesting doing right after school like we normally do for the adults on May 14th, and then moving into the business portion of the meeting. And then on May 28th, same right after from 4 to 6 doing the student recognitions and going into the business portion of the meeting. Those would be at Rancho.
I thought we had created a special meeting for a celebration at one point.
I think at one point we did, but last year, I believe or the last couple of years, we've been using one meeting as the whole awards and then the other one as our business. That's what I think we've been. Am I right?
Last year we did one special board meeting between the two.
Yes.
Oh, we did.
Yes.
Just
Okay.
for recognition go around.
Recognition.
Okay, so that's another,
Yeah, I would make the recommendation that we do that because I don't want to take away a celebration and have a public hearing on a day that we would be celebrating.
yeah, well, they'd be separate.
Right.
Yeah. So you'd like just one day dedicated to celebration. Okay, do we have can we look at a date just because we do have to get the invitations and things out to people?
The 21st, Wednesday, in the middle of both.
Yeah, we'll reschedule certificate around table. May 21st? Okay. I got a note passed down that Olivewood Food Drive is happening this week, and remember the students shared the flyer with you, so if you find yourself near Olivewood and you want to drop some food off, we're doing that. And then the last thing I just want to say is a happy early birthday to Dr. Kevin.
Happy birthday.
All right, I wanted to thank our Rancho teachers for being here. You remind us who we're accountable to, and I know this is extra time. Thank you for coming, and thank you to MCETA for encouraging you to be here. We have 8.5 weeks, give or take a moment or two, and oh my goodness, the kids are all over it. So 8.5 weeks, and we can focus and power through this with them and enjoy these last weeks that we have with this year's crew. I got to show off pictures of our playgrounds today. I had numerous jealous people who are, oh, I'm sorry, but you're getting yours.
Yeah, we had a bid come in today this morning.
Hurry up.
Bid came in this morning.
Okay, so
it's underway.
But it was a joy to be able to show others what we are doing here in our district for our students. We as a board and as a district hold Trustee Avalos in our thoughts and our prayers. And my last note to Mrs. Pineda, if she's watching from wherever she is, which I doubt it, seeing as she got to retire, to Miss Benitez, to Miss Villavicencio, to Miss Larson, to Miss Zuniga, and to Mr. Petty. Michaela is now 21. Well, tomorrow will be 21. My youngest, who started on this district and tagging along in a stroller at a whopping handful of months old. So thank you for raising her, and thank you for teaching, and thank you for the child that has grown into a lovely adult and being a part of that. And with that, we'll close our meeting.
Next board meeting, we'll have